6:30 p.m. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who is audio or video recording? If you would just raise your hand and identify yourself, and I see none. Thank you. Selectmen's comments and announcements. Mrs. Salter?
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Madam Chair, if I can get this out, I'd like to congratulate the Murdoch Blue Devils football team for winning the Turkey Bowl. And from what I understand, this was the first time in 15 years they won.
Yes.
So congratulations to them.
Absolutely. And I have nothing at this time. Are there any public comments and announcements this evening? Seeing and hearing none. Moving on, we have no public hearings. We have nothing under appointments and resignations. Under agenda item 5, permit licenses, 5.1, we have an entertainment permit from the Recreation Commission for the second annual Festival of Lights and Craft Fair. Good evening.
Good evening. So we held this event last year. We had done the craft fair along.
To the mic.
We had done the craft fair along with the tree lighting, and last year we were able to do it in conjunction with the Festival of Trees at the library. That's not happening this year, unfortunately. And the Historical Society is doing their holiday place setting event the same day, so we roped that in for promotion purposes. So the craft fair will be from 9 to 2, and the tree lighting will be from 5 to 7 o'clock. For some people asked, the lighting itself will happen at 5:30, but we'll still have cocoa, and I believe the Boy Scouts are planning to, the 2 Eagle Scouts are planning to do a bake sale to raise some money for their projects. And then we'll do the tree lighting, we'll have Santa and all that fun stuff, carols.
Very good. I see that there are no department head questions. Questions, comments from the board? All right. So I will, hearing and seeing none, I make a motion to approve the entertainment license.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I move to approve the entertainment license for the Festival of Trees and Crafts Fair on December 3rd as presented this evening.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck. And then we have one other. We have a Christmas tree sales permit from Brian Beauregard. You're in Old Center, I understand?
I am.
Very good. Looking for, to sell trees from 11/28 to 12/24, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 5. I see no issues from department heads. Questions, comments from the board?
Nope.
All right. I will make the motion to approve the Christmas tree permit for B. Beauregard as presented this evening.
Second.
Oh,
Let's go ahead.
seconded.
Trying to save your voice
Yeah.
here, Rick.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas.
I just want to make a comment on the first permit that we did for the Festival of Lights. I recognize that there's been, some personnel changes and such like that, but the date of their application was September 28th. And it's now 2 months later, the week of the event. If we could just be aware of the passage of time, because I think ideally we'd like to be able to approve these permits at least a couple weeks in advance. So that would be helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, we have no reports this evening from committee departments. New business. Item 7.1 on our agenda. Heel is here this evening to request a letter of support from the board for the community grocery store project. Perfect timing. Welcome. Good evening. Familiar faces, but for the record, if you would please state your names before you speak.
I'm Miranda Jennings.
I'm Inanna Arthen.
And I'm Mina Schulten, not a Winchendon resident, but with Growing Places.
Very good. I will turn the floor over to you ladies.
Okay, who's changing the slides? Oh, okay. Yay.
Is that my cue? Would you like the next slide? Are you moving on?
No, sure, another one.
Right.
First slide is
Okay, we're presenting today for, on behalf of the engaged residents of Winchendon, Heel, Winchendon resident leaders, and our partners. And we've been working to improve healthy food access in Winchendon for 5 years. And over the past 12 months, we have generated a lot of momentum around bringing a full-service grocery store to Winchendon. And we'd like to thank everyone on the Board of Selectmen for giving us the opportunity to present on our progress to the project. So we're starting out with our asks. We're going to put that right at the top, and then we're going to expand on where we have, what the things we have been doing that have gotten us here. And as you can see in the slide, what we're asking for tonight is we're asking the Board of Selectmen to sign a letter of support for the grocery store project. We're asking you to prioritize it, to support our identification and procurement of funding, and to provide us with guidance as to how to most effectively engage town departments and boards. And we know that town engagement is critical to our success, and we're very excited to be engaging the town further in this project. Next. So just as a quick recap, Growing Places, Hayward Healthcare, and the Health Equity Partnership of North Central Mass have all been working together to improve healthy food access in Winchendon since 2017. That was what catalyzed the establishment of Heal Winchendon. We know that after the IGA closed in January of 2017, that at least 2 different established grocery store chains in this area, Market Basket and Donnellan's, took a real serious look at the area and said it wasn't going to work with their business model. So we were looking at how we could leverage our collective assets to meet what people in Winchendon were saying they really wanted. Now, we were working with New Venture Advisors, a food systems consultancy firm, to support a project in aggregation and distribution and light processing of local food production. So we had this relationship. So next. So we engaged New Venture Advisors to do a really in-depth study. And we enlisted them to help us answer a 2-part question. Would a grocery store be viable in Winchendon? And then what features would make it successful? And they looked at the trade area, the interest level in town, distribution opportunities, and formats and ownership models to consider. So you see that at this point, for the last 12 months, we've really been digging deep into some serious metrics and details about what kind of business model really might work. And at this, I'll turn it over to Mina.
All right, excuse me. So our study with NVA actually built on a previous study that was conducted, and the survey was open from 2019 to March of 2022. And this first study was all around asking residents where they get their food, what would make it easier for them to access healthy food. It also generated a lot of data about what kinds of foods people buy the most and really what they need. It also asked some questions about how food may be related to their health and their health care. Oh, could you advance the slide, please, Justin? Thank you, thank you. So I'll just pull out just a couple of kind of key pointers from that related to the health outcomes. 43% reported being told they needed to modify their diet for health reasons. And 25% of Winchendon residents receive food primarily from food pantries and convenience stores or dollar stores within walking distance. And this compounded with the fact that about 11% of Winchendon residents have identified that they don't have cars or personal transportation to get to the grocery store, really underlines the need. Now, the second study really kind of built on this data, asked some additional questions of what people would be needing in a full-service grocery store, and approached things from a financial perspective to access the food retail potential in Winchendon. And we think that the results are quite encouraging. It engaged 309 respondents, 91% of whom said that they would shop at a Winchendon grocery store, and of these, relatively large percentage said they would shop with some frequency. So we think this is a very encouraging sign that there is robust community support for the store. Thank you. So, this opened up the question of what would it take for Winchendon to support a small to mid-sized grocery store, right? So the baseline need, we think, is there, and we wanted to get a little bit more information about what it would really take to get this thing off the ground and have it be financially viable. So using standard industry average shopper data, NVA put together this chart based on a theoretical 8,000 square foot store. And so for frame of reference, just for scale, that's about the same square footage, a little less than the square footage of the Athol Savings Bank, which is around 10,000 square feet. The first box gives the average weekly revenue if all 10,461 approximately Winchendon residents shopped at the store. And from this, they derived the annual sales based on the percent of the people that actually shop at the market, which is what they call the market share, right? And so they also provided some information around building rental costs as a proportion of rental sales. So this gave us an idea of how many shoppers would need to be engaged, the revenue that would have to be generated if we captured various percentages of the market share, and then sort of extended it out to what a typical rent per square foot might look like. And so there are a couple of important kind of takeaways. So based on an average commercial rental space of about $10 per square foot per year, we think we need to hit about at least a 10% market share just to cover these costs, right, of the building. This translates to 1,000 people using the store as their primary shopping location, spending about $75 per person per week. So it gives a kind of a good idea of the kind of churn or the business that we need to get through the store to begin to make it financially viable. And really what that means is that in order to make this store a reality and make it viable, we need to pursue all opportunities to minimize rental and mortgage costs. And perhaps the town can provide some assistance and support with this by providing economic incentives, or if a property came up, even providing that as well.
Thanks, Mina. We also took a good look at what Winchendon residents wanted through the survey data, but also through various community conversations. And I want to thank the residents that are here tonight that were part of some of those conversations. What we heard loud and clear is that Winchendon residents really want a full-service grocery store with variety. But you can see from this list on the screen that they also want local foods, foods that are pre-made, with high quality and a clean environment that's also affordable. So to make this happen, to have a full-service grocery store, we also need to look at the different assets we have in our region, not just in Winchendon. So if we look at what NVA has provided for us, they have given us a list of specialty distributors that we can tap into. We also have our local food works initiative happening in the region, which is organizing a lot of local producers and farmers. We have over 200 farmers in the region that could be involved in this project as well. And when possible, the store will be supplied by local producers, and also supporting our makers right here in Winchendon with our Winchendon Makerspace project, which we're hoping to pilot in the senior center this year, so we can also bring in our local makers. And then we can't forget our wonderful youth change makers, Sunshine Cafe. So we have a lot of really active moving parts in our region, not just in our town, but in our region that we can tap into, and with NVA providing us the kind of expertise large grocery store suppliers, we could make this creative full-service grocery store kind of come to life. And here are just some quotes from residents about what they find important. I think it helps illustrate the variety of what people are looking for, from prepared meals and affordability, a clean building, having it be central, having parking and accessibility was huge for residents, probably the most important thing, but also shopping local and having a variety and having that friendly in-person place where you can go shopping, not just, an online grocery store or some big box store where you don't have the person-to-person and getting to know you experience.
So this study gave us the confidence to really explore the next steps. Because the next step, once we've determined that the trade area can support a store, the numbers are saying that the grocery store is very, very desirable. The survey results say that people are going to shop there, and that we have distributors that will work with us at that size. Next, we need to decide the best ownership model and the store format.
So you'll hear us say this again and again. Engaging the community is really the key to the success of this project. And so in discussing the ownership and store format models, we wanted to go about it in a systematic way, which NVA provided us with. They gave us kind of a matrix of things to assess operational fit, the products and the services to meet the community needs. And we had some initial discussions as a core team and then opened that conversation out to the community. So the sort of options or menu of options that NVA kind of offered included some innovative and non-traditional models to consider. So who knew that a school or even the town could own a grocery store? That's one option. A more traditional option would be one independent operator owning the store. What we wanted to really do is leverage all of the assets that we have here and leverage what various partners in this project can offer the community. So we landed on a public-private partnership being the best fit model for this store. So again, sort of residents are central. This slide kind of offers some potential ways that some of our engaged partners might be able to contribute. There could be a store within a store concept if there wanted to be a private business that was going to be involved. The town can play a part. Nonprofits would play a pretty big role in acquiring grant funding. And the store can maybe even offer more than just food, events, and education or gathering space. A lot of residents really were very interested in exploring a traditional cooperative model, and this gave us pause because on one hand we're aware that many co-ops are struggling financially, but it was very clear that residents are really at the project's heart and that folks want to have a stake in this store, and so we think that's important as well.
And I think what's most exciting about this project is that it will be a grocery store, but it's so much more than a grocery store. We have amazing partners like Haywood Hospital, who's here tonight, Growing Places here tonight, the CAC, the town, local residents, and I think it's very unique and rare that all these people are coming together for this type of project. So it's a really special opportunity, and it could be an amazing store that is so much more than a store. I think From residents that we've spoken to, it's been described as a heart of a community, of our community, and that has been lost in a lot of ways. We don't have that necessarily in Winchendon, so this could really provide that community space that will be the heart of our community, or bring all the hearts of our community together for food. But we want to get creative and innovative with it. We want it to be LEED certified, a healthy building, you know, gardens on the rooftop, who knows, gardens outside, a farmer's market outside. Beautiful space designed with Winchendon residents. We have the opportunity to do a community-based design. It could have a commercial kitchen that could also double as a teaching kitchen for community classes, for students to do hands-on learning in, an indoor and outdoor flex space for gathering, a teen cafe, like we mentioned before, and it could also have offices for social service agencies in town to provide those wraparound services. And those are just some of the ideas of what it could be. So we're investigating opportunities to deeply engage the community in a participatory design process and architectural plan. And this would entail working with an architectural firm specializing in participatory design and healthy green design that fits with Winchendon and our future planning. And I would like to add, this was not prepared in this presentation, but we just got word about 2 hours ago that Perkins & Will, which is one of the top 10 largest architectural firms in the world, has offered to do an architectural plan for this project for Winchendon for free as part of their pro bono work. And I'd like to publicly thank Dr. Erica Etland, who's a Winchendon resident, and our master planning committee for making that connection for us and opening up that opportunity for us to apply for, and for Mina and Ann from Growing Places for writing the proposal. So that's really exciting and encouraging as well, to think that a very large and established firm has great faith in this project and sees just how big and impactful of a project that this could be. So looking ahead, what do we need? We need we need an architectural plan, which it looks like we have, or we will have. We need a location. So in order to pursue the next steps, an architectural plan and a business plan are needed, and we need to identify a viable location for the store.
So we've actually been out there on the ground, conducting site visits of various locations in town. We're weighing the options, building on vacant land versus remodeling or refurbishing an existing building, whatever goes into that. There's advantages and disadvantages to both of them. There's various opportunities in town for both of those. We're continuing to engage with the Winchendon Redevelopment Authority, with various property owners in town, and with the town itself to find a location. We're open to all kinds of suggestions. We're open to surprises. We welcome any suggestions that the board may have to give us, and any creative ideas. So our next steps are to grow our team of core community members to steer the process. So people who are interested in participating with this are welcome and encouraged and invited to get in touch with us. Activate a very, I'll say aggressive even, buy local campaign. We're really trying to get the word out there to support our local producers on all levels. And really get people into this sense that buying local is good for them, good for the town, good for everyone. Ensure active town partnership, working with the master plan, working with funding, working with a location that will not only benefit this project, but benefit the town as a whole. Conducting a participatory design process, which is where people in the town, community members, get to be part of the process with the architectures as they work, starting from the blank piece of paper on up. So we have something that really matches what people in this town want to see here. Developing a pragmatic business plan that's going to be sustainable and is really going to work in the long term. And soliciting an RFP for an operator, someone with a lot of experience. And, you know, I think we're aware that diversification, this has to be more than just a little food store, you know, and we want somebody who has a lot of experience working not just with food retail, which is complicated enough, but who has experience working with diversified enterprises as well. So, next. So going back to our asks today, why we're sitting here in front of you tonight, we provided you with a letter of support for the grocery store, asking you to prioritize it, to support our identification and procurement of grant funding, provide us with guidance in how to most effectively engage with town departments and boards and committees. And we're asking, will you sign this letter and commit to supporting the grocery project? And we're also going to be asking the town for a certain amount of funding, and we'd like the board to advise us on which town bodies and processes we should engage to advance this request. And we welcome, you can go next, yep. We welcome your questions, your insights. We want to thank you very much for your time and attention tonight and your ongoing and consistent over the last few years time and attention to improving food access and the health and well-being of our residents. We believe that rural communities like ours can innovate. We can honor the past, and we can build a more secure and healthy and joyful future together. And we can be an example for communities like ours. So through our grassroots work here in Winchendon, we know residents are noticing what we're doing. And once we identify and secure a viable location, we know that we can mobilize this community to engage in the design process and create a buy local culture that will support this store. And together, and with your help and with the full support of the town, we can tap into all of Winchendon's assets, and we can expand our sense of what is possible here. And we can show everyone else how it's done. And that's why we're here. So we hope you'll sign our letter of support, and you'll help us secure our funding and generate the political will and build the community base we need to get a full-service grocery store back here in Winchendon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments from the board?
I have a few questions.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ward.
I'm all for this, and I see the need. I do have several questions. When you did your research, did you look into the past and find out why IGA, why the beef shop, why those grocery stores closed or left Winchendon?
My name's Ann Yeagle. I work with Mina Schulten at Growing Places. And so, yes, to answer your question, we did that research prior to NVA coming on board, and it was a myriad of different issues. And so some of them are the movement of new businesses that degraded the store's income enough within the town, like the dollar store, CVS, Walgreens, just enough, because what happened was the community then started to go out of town in order to get the bulk of their grocery products. As that happened, it was just enough money to take away from the IGA to keep it viable, and hence the different, it started to degrade in its quality, right, in its variety, and it's a perfect storm that kind of came in together. And so that is why we are developing an alternative grocery store model and not a traditional model like a Market Basket or a Donald's, because we know that's not going to be successful. And so that is why we hired these experts to come in to design a store in a rural community, because this happens all over the country. This is not a phenomenon just in Winchendon. This happens in many rural communities across the country. And this is what these experts do, is they look at similar communities and they look at, well, they do a significant amount of community input and engagement to determine what is going to fly in a particular community, and then they begin to create a model for the community based on community input and benchmarking success in other similar communities.
And looking at these models, do you see a local store being competitive price-wise with Market Basket and Hannaford's? Because the bottom line is, folks are going to go where they can get the food the cheapest. And so will this store be competitive with them?
So a couple things. Number one, people can't use their WIC benefits across state lines. So anybody who is a low-income person and needs to use their WIC benefits, they cannot use them at any New Hampshire, any store. So especially at the Market Basket, right? And that's the cheapest when you look at affordability. If you look at a Hannaford or a, the Big Y, right? Or Price Chopper that's in Gardner, which is the next closest because Market Basket is physically the closest up over Ringe. The prices aren't that inexpensive, actually, when you start to look at them. So the biggest competition is really Market Basket and Walmart that we're talking about. And that is the piece around the buy local campaigning culture, is we did assess what was the most important factor for people. That was one of the questions, and we're happy to share the individual answers to all of the different, to the 2 different studies that we did. And time again, quality was actually the number one. It was not affordability and price. And so that is then what we're looking at is the quality. And then second is price, so it needs to be comparable. And if we do this right, we are saving money in gas to go to these stores that are, so when you really start to think about it, and if we can get this buy local culture and do the marketing and promotion properly, we really can change hearts and minds around supporting a grocery store. But it's so important that we do this together and that the community is all in it together, because it's not going to work if the community isn't into it together.
And I guess my final question is for town manager. And this, I guess the only part I really have a problem with is town funding and involvement in this. Because, and I'll use an example, not for just produce in town, which sells food, is a small, very small grocery store. Will the town be, in effect, supporting a store that's going to compete with our local businesses?
And that's an excellent question, and it's a concern that I think mirrors some of the concerns I've brought up from the jump, is that, being cautious that we avoid the perception or reality that the town is picking the winners or losers in what should be a somewhat like fair and open market. And so that's certainly a component, and I think to an extent where, I think Town Hall and my office in particular has coordinated oftentimes with these initiatives. I think we're always mindful of the fact, sometimes to a depressing degree, I can be a bit of a rain cloud in some of our meetings, because those are things that we have to consider that sometimes folks might not consider. And so I think early on in part of this conversation, the hub itself, I think it was called for to be centered around Beth's store, for example, and I'd kind of said, let's hit the brakes on this one, because how would that be perceived? And so that's absolutely a component. I think it's a delicate situation, but I also think this problem in and of itself is kind of unique, and it's going to require a little bit of a unique response from the town. And I think, from time to time, it's appropriate for the town to kind of go out on a limb and make that type of investment if it means a meaningful change for the people in the community.
And I think we need to look at it legally too, and really check this out with our legal folks.
Yep, so the best safety net that we could use and that I've recommended is actually, if we go through this process, creating some type of RFP, so that it's something that's available to everybody and people have an opportunity to put forth a proposal. And there's a playbook made for that already. So I'll certainly check with legal counsel still, but that's the way we'd have to go about it if the town were to commit some type of funding towards this, is to request that some groups come forward and provide a proposal.
And can I add one thing specific to not just produce, because that's a concern of ours as well. So when we started this project, Beth has been involved in Heal Winchendon from the very beginning. One of the locations on that map is not just produce that you'll see, but there's some deal breakers around where the store needs to be. Location is always the most important thing in any retail business, but parking is extremely important. And so we have worked with Beth not only to secure thousands of dollars of grants for her to scale up, including just getting her a grant to get a rotisserie so she can sell rotisserized chickens. So that's coming. So everyone be excited for that. And then the second thing is WIC, because we do want people other than CVS and larger stores, chain stores, to accept WIC. So we just got her a grant to accept WIC at her POS as well. And so this is not in competition with Beth. Actually, it's in synergy with Beth. And also, if one of the major components of this is buy local culture. So in order to really do this and make it a community food project, every community business who would like to be involved will be at the table and have a seat.
Thank you.
And I would also emphasize that this is a grocery store project, but it's really, a community hub and a community health project, because that is really at the base of why we're doing this. Winchendon has some of the highest levels of chronic diseases that are, all nutrition related. And this is not just addressing us wanting a grocery store, it's for the health of our residents, which is one of the chapters of our master plan. So we see this directly connecting to, to the health and well-being of residents, not just a commercial venture. And that's why we want to do a private and public partnership, so it really does have that public benefit and involvement as part of it. Thank you for the questions.
Pardon me. An earlier slide stated that to be viable, it would be about 1,000 people committed to shop there and spend $75 per person per week. Do you know what's the average person spending now? Are they spending $75 a week? So are they spending $50 a week? So this wouldn't be a bump up from what the average is now.
We do have that data, yeah. Yep, sorry, Mina, go ahead.
Was that one in the survey? I think
Yeah,
it was,
so that was in the original survey as well, was to ask average purchasing from households by household size. So that was benchmarked off of that. But also then this data is the national average of what the average people are spending as well. So it's the two coupled together.
How does Winchendon compare to the national average? Are we higher or lower?
They were very
You know.
comparable.
Beg pardon?
They were comparable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The survey that we did also had some more stratified data on how often folks would shop and about how much that they would spend per shop too. So all of those figures kind of went into NVA's new analysis for this as well. So
Okay.
it does get a little bit more granular.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I have no other questions on the presentation. I'll echo Rick's concerns about, I don't feel that the board has the authority to commit to, any sort of funding on behalf of the town. The verbiage in the letter, there's two related to town funds. Do you have the letter? I think I saw it there, yeah. The third bullet point, no, down. Advising on the process of requesting town funds towards the development of a pragmatic business plan for the store. And then the second to the last one, investigating incentives that the town can contribute. I don't feel that it's our purview to do that. Mr. Town Manager.
So, Madam Chair, the second one, I guess it depends maybe how it's worded, but incentives such as TIFs, so if it's a town-owned property, or a underutilized property where we could offer, lower taxes in exchange, for the first 5 years in exchange for economic growth, which typically when you do that anyway, it goes by a town meeting vote. So you could, as a board, vote to support that, knowing that it would still go before the people of Winchendon for an opportunity to allow that.
Would that be better worded? We ourselves would not do the investigating. You would be the one, so we would support, instruct the town manager to investigate incentives that the town can contribute. Rather, the way it's written now, we would be doing the investigating. What are your thoughts? We're just looking at that one bullet point at the moment. And did you have thoughts on the other bullet point as well?
The first one's really at your discretion. I would like to call and just confirm how it would look, but, you know, it's a community initiative. It's not like, I'm trying to think of a direct parallel, and I'm struggling here, but like for Bullspit, for example, if the town were to just start a brewery and just decimate Bullspit because they wouldn't be able to compete, I guess is the best example I could come up with. But the town already does contribute to non-town entities. The CAC, for example, is not a town entity. The Clark is not a town entity. And so I would think in this same instance, if it's using similar funding sources, both of those annually go through our annual budget. So once again, it's, the board could support that, but it would be with the understanding that it would probably have to go before the larger public body at a town meeting. And I think the only exception to that you currently have available in your coffers is ARPA funding, where realistically I feel for this type of purchase, we've set the precedent, well, for capital purchases anyway, that we would go before the larger public body for that. But there have been instances where we haven't. So it's really, that one is at your discretion. I would say that part of the purpose of that pot of money is to encourage economic growth in your community. And so I do feel that you have the discretion, but that one is more so up to your political appetite that I won't be weighing in on.
Okay. Because the way the letter's written, the BOS makes the following commitments: advising on the process and investigating the incentives, which we ourselves would not be doing. So how can we reword that if we want to leave those 2 bullet points about funding in there?
Can it be Winchendon Board of Selectmen and Town Manager makes the following commitments?
No.
Because when I look at advising on the process, again, I'm very leery on the funding.
Understood. Agreed.
But this is just advising on the process. So this is us telling them, this is what you need to do. You need to go before the town meeting with a warrant article to get some money, or try to get some. We're not approving it, we're just telling you how to do it.
Yes,
So I don't see anything wrong with that.
that's correct. That's how we intended the letter of support to read.
We're not giving the money, we're
I
just
understand
suggesting
that.
ways to go
I do
try
understand
it.
that.
And I would say, for the sake of fairness, in any given week, we get a whole host of folks coming in looking to start businesses in town that come into our planning and development office, or will come out to my office and kind of kick the tires on different properties, or try to feel out what resources might be available to help get them off the ground. So it's something we're already doing. It's pretty commonplace. I mean, you could, even if you wanted to count me as a resource, you could say that you're committed to, providing access to, resources that would aid in advising on the process of requesting town funds, or something along those lines. But with the understanding that I'm a resource to everybody equally in the community, regardless of who comes to my door.
Okay.
Is that a flute?
No, that was from Close Encounters. It
Yeah.
sounded like that. Do, do, do.
Yeah, love that movie.
See? I'm an 80s movie fan. So, Amy, your thoughts?
My thoughts, we desperately need a grocery store.
No doubt about
It benefits so many people that we should do whatever we can to help move it along and offer support. It's so important. And clearly, there's been a lot of work into this, and I'm thoroughly impressed and appreciate everything you've done. Clearly, you love our community, in order to come up with this plan, and it, makes me very proud to do that, and we should offer our full support.
So are you all right with the
I'm fine
wording
with it.
of
Yep.
the?
Absolutely.
All right. So we have advising on the process of requesting. I suppose our advice would be to offer the services of the town manager. Because another one, the second bullet point, helping them understand the town processes pertaining to the project and advise which town departments, boards, or committees should be engaged in when. That's definitely from your office or the planning development office and not the board, but again, we support it. Okay. I agree, it's very, very important.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, because I grew up here, just thinking, and I know a lot of things have changed, but I grew up in a time where, like, we had one car, and if my dad was working, we didn't have a car. So, we used to walk down to the grocery store and buy groceries, and, and I know there are people in that same situation now, and they don't have access, so.
Okay.
I know what it's like.
Yeah,
It was a
agreed.
long time ago, but it's definitely life in a small town.
Yes. So what is the pleasure of the board?
What do we need to do? Do we need a motion to?
You can just motion to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board
Okay.
as presented.
I would like to make a motion to authorize the chair, Audrey, to sign the letter as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? The only thing I'll have to say is I'm going to need another copy because I made notes on this one. All in favor, say aye.
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 The chair votes aye. We will get
Thank
that
you
to
very much.
You're welcome.
So much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for all you do. So do you have another copy of that by any chance? Okay. And I'll get that signed tonight. If not, I can come by tomorrow
Okay.
and sign it. All right, moving on. Old business, 8.1, Town Manager Annual Performance Review Discussion. We are looking to have the review on December 19th, which is, let me bring up my calendar. 28th, 1, 2, so 3 weeks from tonight. So what I would like to request is that all the documents can be sent to the board members, the performance review, all the current copies of everything within the next couple of days, so then we have a chance to take a look at it, do our evaluations, and then I would request that the board get them back to myself, let's say by December 16th. And that will give me a couple days to compile it and prepare it for the 19th.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Ward?
And just a question, I think the last time we did this, the town manager provided a quick document on what he thought were his major points during the year. Would we still want that? Might be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can get you something out maybe by early next week. Just something
Okay,
we can
good.
all
It's good, yeah,
think
because
about.
there are a lot of things you do that we don't. It's not that we're not, I guess, we don't follow every single day. So, yeah, remind us, too. It's been
I
a year.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. So if we can get the documents in the
idea.
next couple of days,
Mhm.
we can start looking at it and then
Yeah.
get the input from Justin and then, so every, results back to me.
Kind of like, yeah, because you do self-evaluations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kind of like a self-evaluation.
And then that'll be on the agenda on the 19th. All right. 8.2, establishment of a fire station design ballot question date. Mr. Salzback?
Thank
Whenever
you,
you're
Madam
ready.
Chair. So included in your packet is a memo kind of breaking down and highlighting this process. as well as a copy of the final results from your October 24th special town meeting. As a reminder, at that special town meeting, the fire station design debt exclusion question did pass in the affirmative 88% to 12%, which far exceeded the 2/3 vote that's required. The ballot vote requires a simple majority. Just as note, by law, your board's required to call for a special election in a public meeting, which is happening right now this evening. That notice has to be provided no fewer than 35 days prior to the proposed election. So in coordinating with Wendy Stevens, our town clerk, we have landed on Thursday, January 19th, 2022, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the old Murdoch Senior Center, located at 52 Murdoch Ave here in Winchendon. We understand that Thursdays aren't always the most traditional, but we are working around several different schedules and personal calendar issues. So between now and the day of the election, we are going to be holding one more public outreach session, just as an opportunity, should citizens still have questions, to come forward and ask me or the chief. I do understand there was a handful of folks after the special town meeting that did have a couple questions in terms of the math and how it would break down. So we want to make sure that we provide that opportunity to the citizens. So when we do that, we'll make sure that we advertise on the town website and social media. So with that said, on the second page, it's a little lengthier than typical, but I did coordinate with legal counsel on this to make sure that we are checking all the boxes. So by reading this, you're effectively stating what the ballot question would be, announcing the time and day of the election, and authorizing or requesting that I reach out and provide a copy of this notice to our town clerk.
All right, thank you.
What happens if it snows that day?
That's the big question. So the actual deadline for this is a little after the 19th. So if there's some type of
That's November.
significant weather event, there are some maneuvers that we can do that are authorized through the Secretary of State's office.
Okay.
And we do have that teed up where they would allow to go beyond that 45th day. But for now, we're just going to cross our fingers.
Okay.
That's a November calendar you're showing,
Sorry.
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
folks
No,
back
I-
home.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we could, like, if you, when you do all this, if you could have like a rain date kind of thing.
Yeah.
Snow day.
Snow day.
You gotta just pick a day
Scheduled.
and commit to it.
Yeah, well, the date's on the ballot, so
Yeah.
the biggest thing is you have to get it, you have to coordinate with the state to do the printing in time, so that's why they have the lead time requirement. So it would have to be a significant weather event for us to not do it.
Okay. Still not bad in January, right?
It shouldn't be. Fingers crossed. You never know.
We don't get snow.
I'll tell you on
February is the hard
Yeah,
one,
what
yeah.
the weather was like on the 19th.
Mm.
All right, anything further from the board?
Nope.
If there's none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move to notify the town clerk that a special election will be held on Thursday, January 19th, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the old Murdoch Senior Center located at 52 Murdoch Ave, Winchendon, Mass. 01475, to vote on the fire station design services debt exclusion.
Seconded.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Schultzback.
my apologies, that may be an old copy you're reading off of, so the one I have up on my screen with the pursuant to general law, chapter 59, if you could read that one instead. I apologize for wasting your voice.
Will the maker and the second of the motion agree to withdraw that?
Yes.
initial motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I move that pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21CM, that the Select Board seek voter approval at a special election to be held on January 19th, 2023, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., to assess taxes in excess of the amount allowed under the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2 for the payment of principal and interest on the bonds or notes issued by the town to pay for design services for a new fire station, as voted under Article 5 of the October 24th, 2022 special town meeting, and that the following question be placed on the ballot for that special election. Shall the town of Winchendon, excuse me, be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay for design services for a new fire station, yes or no? And that the Board of Selectmen direct the town manager provide the town clerk with a copy of this vote. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a quick question.
Yes, Mr. Ward.
Will that ballot show someplace what the amount of the money is that they're asking to spend?
We can work that into the question, just so people know it's, what the total figure is.
Yeah, I think they need to know that.
Point.
As the maker of the motion, I will amend my motion to include a dollar amount. Is the seconder of the motion okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have before us a vote on the amended motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Let me just add the dollar amount. All right, thank you very much. Next, 8.3, White's Mill Pond Dam decommissioning review.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair. So just as an update to your last meeting, the decommissioning at the dam at White's Mill Pond went before the Conservation Commission several years ago. At that time, there was an effort to halt work on the property, but it was overruled by the Massachusetts Superior Court in an agreement for judgment that's attached to this memo. As I mentioned at your last meeting, DPW Director Croto and I met on the 17th of this month with representatives from the property owner, as well as contractors who are taking a lead on this initiative. From this point, the town is largely working as advocates for residents in the surrounding area. It is court ordered, it does need to move forward. So we are also working to ensure that the contractor for this project is regularly communicating with us as much as possible. This will allow us to properly notify the community as the project moves forward. At this time, the contractor is expecting to begin work in early December, with restoration to occur throughout the winter and spring, and a copy of the plans for this project have been attached to this memo as well. No action is needed at this time, but I just wanted to make sure that you had that information available. So real quick, should anybody be watching at home? The plan essentially calls for, and if you ever walked back there, this section where I'm resting my cursor is where you can kind of walk over the dam. What they're planning on doing is removing this section so that the channel will just go directly through instead of kind of jogging over and out that way. So as part of that, they're going to be building steps into the hillside, and it really should be fairly low impact. Another question I had is whether or not they had done a topographical study or any topo work underneath the water so they can better understand the channels that's going to move through what's essentially going to be dry land through there. And they have done that work as well, although it's an estimate. So you can see there's an existing high spot right here. And realistically, when they go through and break through this channel, the water should follow the low points if you're familiar with reading a topographic map. So basically where I'm running along with my cursor here and straight through to the back. And then I guess also interestingly, as an aside, the work's going to be done by Sumco Eco Contracting, which I can't remember if I mentioned this in a previous meeting, but the folks at Sumco, actually, their history, their lineage goes back to the White family. So it's kind of an interesting story, comes full circle.
Absolutely, thank you. Questions, comments from the board?
Where exactly does the water originate from for that pond? Like, so
Brian
who's
might know
losing the
this
water?
one. Yeah,
Now, like, who's gonna be affected by that?
It's ultimately, it's everything that goes down to the Millers River, but I'm not sure where that water actually comes from.
So it comes from Lake Menominee.
Now, how's that gonna affect them?
It's not gonna affect it at all, because we have dams on our side, so all it's gonna do is dry up the picture that the town manager provided. It's not gonna provide any impact to them upstream whatsoever.
Ooh, actually, we got a little graphic here. Let's see. So exactly, there's dams before it, which makes everything up above fine, and there's dams under it, which makes everything else fine. So really, it's this section of the system that's gonna be drawn down. So that high spot, for example, the hill that I was pointing at, is this hill right here,
And where's the dam?
and the dam's over here.
And you go up towards the lake.
So you can kind of see how it like comes through this way. So it's just gonna
Right.
punch through right that way, and it's gonna continue on, I believe the green markings are denoting realistically where it's gonna go. So it's gonna go around the high spot that I referenced, back down, around, and straight through.
So
Okay.
it'll go all the way back to what we call the red dam, which is the second dam.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so it's off, the dam itself is off this particular
Yeah, so you
map.
have the main lake, then you have the bridge that goes over the lake, then you have the little pond. Well, there's a little dam on the small pond. So after that, that's when you'll get more of a channelized flow.
And I also did ask and confirm as well if it's gonna stay like a mud flat out there, if they have to do any replication, and they said that it typically will grow back within the first full spring and summer cycle into meadowland.
It grows in pretty fast, I'm sure. Okay. Any questions, comments? There is no movement by the board required at this time on that. Thank you for the review. Next, we have the waste 8.4, wastewater treatment plan revenue operation opportunity follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, we're very happy to deliver this news. So Director Croto and I met down at the wastewater plant early in the month to go over a potential revenue source that we had discussed in front of this board maybe 5 or 6 months ago now, just as a follow-up. And the discussion was taking in outside septage for a fee. But the biggest question at that time was whether or not we had the capacity available. So we're happy to report that it's been determined that without making any upgrades to the existing plant, there's enough space effectively in our system to generate roughly $100,000 in revenue annually without doing anything, without making any investment at no cost. The second piece was if we wanted to significantly increase that number, it would be about a $2 million upgrade, give or take, depending on the scope of that work, which we're looking at right now in a pretty broad view. But if you're doing quick math at home, doing that upgrade, that $2 million figure, that bond could be paid for over 20 years or so using just that $100,000 alone effectively. On an annual basis. And so this one's a win-win. It's literally looking like at this point not going to cost the town anything. And it's something that we can put into place immediately. So really big win for the town. Big thanks to Director Croto for seeing it through and following up on that. And so what we're asking the board at this time is to move forward with about a year-long trial period that we're looking to initiate so that we can see what type of wear and tear it might have on the plant to initiate that $100,000 scenario. And then I think once we get data, bringing it back to the board, reviewing the data, and maybe kind of looking into what it would look like if we were to do some upgrades down there and take in more septage, which would drive more revenue. The long-term benefit on this one is if we can drive more revenue, some conversations we've had on the accounting side of things is it would create the potential where, in so many words, by having that additional revenue, we could reduce the cost of the sewer side of the bill and increase the cost of the water side of the bill without having an impact on our ratepayers. But increasing the water side of the bill, that could potentially pay for a significant chunk of the $10 million water transmission line without impacting our budget. So you're pretty much taking the revenue on the sewer side, lowering the cost and increasing the cost on the water. So that's something that we're going to be looking at, and it could be a pretty significant solution to that problem.
So if we make no changes to it at the moment, we could generate up about $100,000 annually. If
Correct.
we do the upgrade, what would that annual income be? It would be more than the 100,000, right?
It would be significantly more, but we're not, we don't have anything firm enough that I'd be willing to put a number out just yet, but it would be significantly more than 100,000.
Okay,
So it's kind of a two-part process, because if you remember, we allocated 175,000 out of ARPA to do some I&I work, which is basically stormwater coming into our plant.
Right.
Well, we're almost done that, and we've highlighted a few areas that we're gonna focus on repairs. So the more stormwater we can take out of the plant, the more septage we can take in. So it's kind of like a two-part process, but when you look at that $2 million upgrade, the $2 million upgrade is not just to take in the septage, it's also to protect the plant for what's coming in right now. Because we don't have screens and people are flushing everything and anything they can, so we have a lot of rags. So it would take that out before it hit the system, so it would be less stress on the system,
Okay.
so less wear and tear, so it's a win-win. The whole way, the whole purpose of what me and Mr. Saltzback are looking at is how can we do these upgrades to provide better for the plant, but not increase the rates for the ratepayers or the town. But it also gives the local septage suppliers that pump out the residential septic at people's houses, those are the people that are going there.
Oh, that was my question, where's it coming from?
We're not
Okay.
taking in trailers. We're taking in people that pump residential septics. So, you know, it's looking at providing a solution for the people in town so that the suppliers that are pumping the residential systems aren't going to Fitchburg or Templeton or farther out, so they
is
can
that what
keep
they
their
do?
prices more reasonable because they're only staying in town. So that's another piece, is to try to lessen the burden for the people that are serving the people that aren't on sewer, and be able to offload in town.
could we also open it up to people who have RVs? You know, individuals, citizens, to empty their tanks?
So at this point, I would say no, because of the way we have to offload, it's pretty systematic. But
Okay.
once, you know, we move forward and we see what we can take and what we can do, with the upgrade, there would be a design where that could happen, but with the way the system works right now, it's not
Okay,
feasible.
sure. Okay,
And I would offer, and I may eat these words in the future, but I have a feeling that $2 million upgrade might be a little bit of a Cadillac. So I think we might be able to scale back on that a little bit too, potentially. So we're going to work on that too and really kind of test that one out. But it is truly one of the infrequent win-win scenarios.
yeah. Okay, anything further from the board?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Seeing and hearing nothing further, I will make a motion. I move to vote to support the town manager and DPW director in executing the above described trial period, with results to be brought back to the Board of Selectmen in the fall of 2023 for further action
Seconded.
with, sorry, had to take a
Sorry.
breath. With the
Not
understanding,
reading the script.
I'm trying not to cough. With the understanding that additional revenue generated by this initiative will be invested back into the wastewater plant.
Okay, seconded.
Thank you. Made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, town manager's report. Mr. Saltzback, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Skipping ahead to minutes. So just a brief report. We've been coordinating with the assessor's office and expect the annual tax rate classification hearing to take place at your December 19th meeting upcoming. And applications for the 2023 Robinson Broadhurst Foundation grant round have been submitted, and a final spreadsheet will be reviewed at your upcoming meeting. Nothing on the personnel side at this time. For project updates, we received a low bid for the old Murdoch Senior Center temporary repairs, and our engineer is reviewing their qualifications. Since I've written this, actually, they've gotten the all clear, so we're gonna move forward on that. We were expecting about 40,000, they came in closer to 25, so, yeah. So that's good, and of course, whenever somebody's low like that, we like to check extra
Yeah,
hard.
really.
So they are
You're getting what you
qualified.
need.
It's not just some guy with a ladder and a tarp. So that's good news, and we're working with them just to schedule. The redevelopment authority reviewed an offer for the property at Beach Street. They have counter-offered, and we're awaiting a response. And the amphitheater project is winding down for the winter with some vertical steel work expected to occur before spring. And just on the miscellaneous side of things, the Hillview project is moving forward with the sale of the property from the redevelopment authority, expected to occur before the end of 2022. So that will allow them to start the process of subdividing that parcel behind Milek
Thank you.
and
I was trying to
potentially
remember what it
building
was.
a business park.
Okay. I was trying to remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Is it be sold, who's it being sold to, an individual, a
Yeah, who's
consortium?
buying that?
Yep, so it's a firm that's looking to put in a large-scale grow facility.
All those people.
Chili Grow facility, okay.
Yep, so we worked pretty closely with them to make sure that they were in the subdivision. They're taking the parcel that is buried way in the back, way off the road, way away from residents. But realistically, it's strategically a good move for us because that's one of the only industries really that's at our disposal that has pockets deep enough to pay to pull a road and utilities in like that. So, you get them back there, you're never really gonna see them. But it could potentially bring in 2 or 3 other industries in town that are a little more mainstream, so.
Yeah, once the access is in there. Any sense of when they'll be coming before us for an agreement?
So that's the other component. There's 2 pieces really. So getting the subdivision through was the one hurdle that we needed for them to agree to buy the property. And then we kind of move on from that piece. Now we're regrouping going into the new year for 2 components. One of them is coming forward for an HCA with the board for the cannabis component. The other one is they're still gonna have to go through the planning board for the actual site work itself. So it's gonna be a little bit of a haul, but I would expect to hear from them sometime in the spring for the cannabis permitting component anyway.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on the town manager report? Thank you, Mr. Salzback. We have some minutes before us this evening. Our Monday, September 12th.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Salzback.
if I may, so there's a little bit of a caveat here, and you may see that there's 2 sets to compare. So the aforementioned personnel change, we're kind of changing up minutes a little bit too, and I know it's an ongoing conversation. So there was the first pass draft, and then there was a second draft that we went through and shortened. In my opinion, we could probably shorten the shortened version, but we kind of wanted to get a feel from the board as we look to kind of settle in on that.
All right, thank you.
So that's why there's 2. The other ones, I believe there's only 1.
All right. So if I can just, okay, so the first document in the Dropbox is the full minutes. The second one is the full minutes with the track changes, and the third one is with the track changes out and just the shortened version. Okay, thank you very much. Questions, comments from the board? Mr. Ward?
Yes, one question. The town manager's report, it says, the shortened version, town manager's report is attached following these minutes. Historically, 10 years from now, when I go back to look at these minutes, will that town manager's report still be attached?
Yes, so, and that's the question that we run into every time we have these conversations, but everything that we have that's available in the packet is permanent record. So my town manager's report is already in there, so that really there's no value in putting it in the minutes. It would be if we took like a map of that swamp and put it in the minutes too, like it's doing the same thing. And so that's part of it, is like paring down some areas where we're just duplicating efforts needlessly.
Okay.
Yeah, I do like that, there was a comment on the minutes, on the town manager's report, and that is included still in the shortened version. There is still considerable dialogue, which is it's a starting point, I believe, anyway, to make these a little more manageable.
I think ultimately it would reduce the 12 pages of minutes down to about 6. And there's still a lot in there.
Yes. All right. I'll entertain a motion. Or I will make a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move to approve the shortened version of the BOS minutes for the meeting of Monday, September 12, 2022, as presented this evening.
Seconded.
thank you. Made and seconded to approve the shortened version. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next up, we have the minutes of our regular meeting on Monday, September 26th, 2022. There is a correction I would like to point out. Under 6.1, let me find it here, yeah. Second paragraph, Labrie noted she met with the town manager and Lauren Goldberg. Also in that meeting was Brian Riley of KP Law, correct. The four of us met. If you just notate that he was also in that meeting, that would be great. And that was the only notation I had. Anything further? I move to approve, as amended, the minutes of the Board of Selectmen regular meeting of Monday, September 26th, 2022.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We have minutes of Monday, October 3rd, 2022, our regular meeting. I had no changes or anything on it. Any questions, comments from the board? If none, I move to approve the minutes of the Monday, October 3rd, 2022 regular meeting as presented.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Last, we have for approval only minutes of the executive session of Monday, October 3rd, 2022. Again, these are here tonight for approval only. Questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, I move to approve and hold the minutes of the executive session of the Board of Selectmen on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye,
Aye.
and the chair will vote aye. No communications. Agenda item, our next meeting is December 12th, I believe?
19th.
Sorry?
19th.
19th. That's right. December 19th, 12/19 is our next meeting. I moved to go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Topic is the town accountant search discussion. And we will reconvene in open session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Second.
Made and seconded to go into executive session. This will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are executive session at 7:49.